Well, Toronto City Council has approved a motion to rename Yonge-Dundas Square and two subway stations. At the same time, Council is pausing their renaming process for Dundas Street itself. Now, for more, I'm joined by Andrew Lochhead, a PhD candidate at Toronto Metropolitan University and the author of the petition that's been calling to rename Dundas. So I guess, Andrew, to start, from one Andrew to another, do you take this as a win, even if the street will ultimately be remaining Dundas Street?
I do. I think this has been an historic couple days here for Toronto. And I think, we should be really, really proud of the conversation that this petition has opened. While our campaign might have focused on renaming Dundas Street, it's just really one prominent example in a much larger and much older conversation about what or who our city remembers. And I think it's important to remember that Council has said that this is a pause. We will possibly look at the street again in the future. And I think that's really fitting because that really represents sort of the ongoing nature of the conversation that we have to have around who and what we remember and celebrate in our public space.
Well, I do want to talk about the extension of that argument, but thinking about this is a moral argument, but there's also an economic one. Now, would it have still been feasible to rename all Dundases at this point, even as the report sees that the price jump is over $12 million right now?
I think an important thing to think about when we talk about costs relative to this is actually twofold. One, what we're actually trying to quantify here is the value of human life and experience in our city. There are a number of studies that equate, racist monuments in particular cities and areas with negative health outcomes and with increases in racially motivated hate crime. So I think when we put, for example, a dollar value on that, it's kind of gross, to be fair. But when we do want to think about it in an economic sense, even at $12 million of a $16.16 billion city budget, this is still less than 0.1% of that budget, which is wild. And, what we've accomplished this weekend, on Thursday in Council, I think the mayor and Councillor Moisey very much took away those economic objections and really exposed what's at the root of opposition to this, and really showed that folks opposed to renaming, are opposed to renaming at any price because they don't see the value in this. And so I think it's important to realize that the costs really aren't that much in the greater scheme of the city budget, but that we can move on with these new names for the public square, and that I think we can celebrate that as a huge victory.
Well, Andrew, we heard a lot, especially in the wake of the murder of George Floyd, whether removing the names of racists, slave owners, supporters, and the like is erasing the past versus confronting it. So just as you're talking there about quantifying something that is almost unquantifiable, the harm, I wonder what you think about those kinds of arguments, as you mentioned, people that don't want to rename a street or what have you, regardless of price tag.
Well, I think the argument about erasing the past is at its very foundation a disingenuous argument. If we are really interested in and we really care about our history and the way that it shapes our present, because that's really what we're talking about here, is we're actually talking about the present. We're talking about not only present day harms, but the relationship to what happened before we were born and how that has bearing on today. I think, we're learning more history. We're telling more stories. And I think if you want to a more full picture of the past, we want to make space for all kinds of stories in our city. And so I think that's a really important thing to do, and an important thing to remember when we're talking about this. That's not just the past, we're talking about now. And that's why Sankofa is such a beautiful name for this square, because it talks about that relationship between the past and the future.
And retrospection. Now, very quickly, we have to wrap, but just to, should we be ending with just Dundas or moving forward with other potential challenges and bumps along the road of our history?
Well, like I said, the conversation here is ongoing, and we learned Thursday night that there are 25 additional place names going through the city's recognition review process. So I think that's a huge positive and a real signal, along with the adoption last year of the new commemorative framework, that this conversation will continue, and that can only be of benefit to everyone who lives here in Toronto.
Andrew Lochhead is a PhD candidate at Toronto Metropolitan University, actually looking to maybe have that subway station be renamed after TMU, we'll see, but also is the author of the petition to rename Dundas. Thank you very much, Andrew, for your time today.
Very welcome, Andrew. Take care.